Hello and welcome to this video on Saturn's transit through Purva Ashadha Nakshatra. Saturn will begin this transit on the 15th of January of this year and will continue its transit on to the 10th of August. At that point, Saturn will backtrack into Mula Nakshatra because Saturn will be retrograde at that point. And it's interesting, the juxtaposition of Mula Nakshatra and Purva Ashadha Nakshatra, because basically Mula Nakshatra quite often has as its hallmark causing a planet, causing an individual in association with that planet to behave in an egocentric manner. Now, egocentric is very different than egotistical. Let's go into that for a moment. You know, it may be egotistical too, but connecting with the ego means that one part of us is refusing to accept something that is perhaps better for us because we think in our individual self that we know better than the universe does, God does, whatever it is you want to call it. And so we resist and we push up against the resistance in a certain area of life, whatever Saturn rules in your chart. And in pushing up against that resistance, we finally reach a point almost where we have kind of like a breakdown. Things just kind of fall apart and they dissolve, and we hopefully have an awakening. That's kind of the energy of Mula Nakshatra. And on a certain level, this process is continued and furthered and fine-tuned through Purva Ashadha Nakshatra. So the questions you need to ask yourself over the next several months is, how much energy are you wasting in your life holding on to something, holding on to someone, feeling that you perhaps need to behave in a certain way and remain bound to a particular set of circumstances, even though that set of circumstances on one level is not really true and authentic to what is going on in here. Maybe you're kind of pretending in a certain area of your life and pretending in a manner that doesn't really serve you anymore, because one part of you is perhaps afraid of what it means of just letting go, what it means of just surrendering and letting the change happen. You're afraid of perhaps the tension and the conflict and the struggle that may ensue if you actually let go. But really, on a certain level, the conflict, the struggle, the tension that you're finding yourself in at this particular moment is much stronger. Let's talk about that for a little bit. Let's understand Purva Ashadha Nakshatra a little bit better. And as I've been doing with a lot of these videos, I'm going to touch on the sutra from Taittiriya Brahmana on Purva Ashadha Nakshatra. Please pardon my Sanskrit mispronunciation. I will try to do my best. I'm going to take it slow for that matter, okay? Apam Purva Ashadha Varchaha Parastat Samatira Avastata. Apam Purva Ashadha Varchaha Parastata Samatira Avastata. Apam, of the waters, or of the water deities, right? Which is what Apam, of the water deities, right? Each nakshatra is of a particular deity. That's why the nakshatras are really powerful. They're the powers of the gods given to us in order to grow our lives. And they function on a higher level as well as on the mundane level within us. So of the waters, the earlier victories, vigor from above. Assembly, conflict, battle from below. So the earlier victories of Apa, the waters, the water deities, is vigor from above and a battle from below. Now this is very multi-layered. On one level, and you may find this in connection with your Saturn because the nakshatras tend to function like that. On one level, you perhaps remember a time where you came through a struggle victoriously, if you will, right? And how invigorated that felt, how invigorated you felt when that happened. And so you're wanting that to continue. So you're resisting a change. You're resisting a change because you're afraid of losing. You're afraid of missing out of something. On another level, there's the side of it that we resist change as individuals. We resist change as individuals, and we struggle senselessly against what the universe wants for us. And Saturn, being a downward-looking planet in a nakshatra that also faces down, right? And so the processes of downward facing energies in astrology are very introverted, and Saturn's focus is very narrow. And so on one level, Saturn gets stuck in and makes us get stuck in this narrow way of thinking. Even though Saturn is quite strong during this particular transit, it gets stuck in this narrow way of thinking. And so we as individuals in the areas of whatever Saturn relates to get stuck on a certain level, when instead the universe is looking to purify us of our ego. It's looking to help us to release all those things that we're struggling against because we're afraid of letting go and because we're afraid of being true to ourselves. When in actuality, and this energy is not separate from us, this energy of this nakshatra, it's not separate from us. When in actuality, if we were to just let the change happen, then we would be purified. That's the power of water. It purifies. It's the eternal causality principle, right? On the shores of the infinite, to reach the infinite, are the waters of creation. Just thinking of an ample metaphor to explain it. And those waters of creation flow forward from the infinite, and they can purify the ego. They can purify the ego and actually make your life better on a certain level where you think you're going to make it better by struggling against the tide. So instead of battling against yourself, instead of struggling against what is really true and authentic inside of yourself, it's time instead to do the opposite and to let the change happen. Now, equally, Purva Ashadha Nakshatra is a Mula Nakshatra. It's a plant-oriented nakshatra. Plants tend to move to where the nourishment is. They'll go to where the light is. They'll be drawn to the light so they can grow. They'll be drawn to digging their roots deeper into the soil in order to get what they want. But a quality of a plant nakshatra when it's out of balance is being overly sensitive, right? Instead of accepting something that is nourishing for itself during a particular moment in time, instead it kind of denies the nourishment that's there and available to it. Right? So the next several months are likely to put you through a process where eventually, once you come out of it, which is not going to be fully probably until sometime next year, because Saturn's going to backtrack into Mula, and then it's going to move forward again. I'll do a video on that later in the year. But at the time when you're through the process, there's a purification process that has happened. You've let go of the struggle. You've become more disciplined and focused on a new positive way of continuing your existence in a way that's much more liberating for you, right? Now, obviously, I've had, people kind of comment on these videos before going, it's a bit general, right? But the thing is I don't know everybody's horoscope, right? So I can't really judge how that's going to impact you as an individual, because each person it's going to impact differently, dependent upon where Saturn rules in the chart, dependent upon Venusian factors in the chart, the well-being of Venus. In addition to that, it depends on what dasha period you're in order to give you deeper information on all of those things and what this change relates to for you. I really do need to look at your individual horoscope. And if you wish for me to do so, you can schedule an astrological service with me through the astrological services page of my website. There will be a link to that at the end of this video. That's going to do it for Saturn's transit through Purva Ashadha Nakshatra, beginning on the 15th of January and continuing through to the 10th of August, 2018. Until next time, please do take the very best care of yourself. Bye now.